You know when you have a really weird nickname at home like Mac Mac or Jam Jam, and then suddenly when you enter college or the working world, you want to be known as either Marcus or Jan Millard? Well, that's kind of the case with the new Subaru XV, now known as Crosstrek. Hey everyone, Vince here from AutoIndustriya, and what I have for you is the new Subaru Crosstrek. Essentially, it's a rebrand of the XV. So they're moving over from, I guess, you would call it unimaginative XV because XV really stands for cross-ver. Now, the Subaru XV is one of the best sellers of Subaru in the Philippines. Actually, it's already been outselling the Impreza to the point that they already discontinued the Impreza for the Philippine market and chose instead to focus on the crossovers like XV, Forester, Outback, all those. I mean, they also have the WRXs, but that's pretty much it when it comes to the passenger car lineup of Subaru here in the Philippines. Now, this being a new generation model, it has a lot of improvements underneath. Because really with the design, as you know, Subarus, they're not really known for great designs, but I have to say, it's pretty good with what they did with the headlights, with the front grille. Maybe they went a little bit over with this cladding over here. They call it the protective cladding. A couple things I want to note. The headlights are here, but these are not fog lamps. These are actually your DRLs, and these are halogens because this version we're driving is not the top of the line model. This is the version that is the 2.0i-L with Eyesight. So it's kind of the base model, even though the price isn't really that big. The price difference isn't that big. And we'll show you later what the differences are. Of course, being an Eyesight model, you see all the cameras up there. That's going to be key later on. We'll get to it when we go inside. Now, from that angle, you can get an idea for the size of the vehicle. It's still very much a compact hatchback, just raised up to its ride height of 220 millimeters. Now, you look at the wheels. These are the black, or is it dark gray, wheels with Yokohama Geolandar tires. Even the spare tire is Yokohama. We'll show you in a bit. It's a smaller spare. But it does have all the black details, this carbon fiber-ish kind of trim here, the protector, cladding, whatever, piano black up here. You have these rather unique roof rails, which are also black, but mounted, the way it's mounted, it's very different than a lot of vehicles we've seen, because instead of having it go like that, it's kind of like right there. It's got its own little, I don't know, pedestal mount. Now, a couple of things interesting about any Subaru is, of course, the way they did the platform, because here in a vehicle, the weakest point of any vehicle is always the door. But the way they do theirs, particularly with the rear, you'll see a little lip here that engages with a little steel piece there. It kind of improves the rigidity of the vehicle in a crash. That's kind of been the thing with the Subaru Global Platform that we've been seeing for the last, I don't know, maybe 7 years now. Now, what else do you see? You get front and rear disc brakes. Again, I mentioned the ride height. But also, the way they do the windows, you notice how it tapers downward. It's very different from the one in the Forester because, again, they're not really trying to make into a big SUV with a tall roofline. They're still making it a very nimble car. Just happens to have a higher ride height. And it's a bit hot out today. Let's go under the shade. Subaru has been getting quite a bit of flack for the way they designed the WRX, particularly the rear end. But this one, actually, I think it works quite a bit better than that one, because you look at how they designed this. Yes, the cladding, it's still all there, but still, it looks a bit better than what they executed with the WRX. Has a diffuser right there. One thing you want to notice is that the rear bumper is actually a bit high up, and you can actually see all the underpinnings of the vehicle, or at least the rear suspension of the vehicle. That is gonna come into play because this one does have double wishbone rear suspension. It'll play a big part with the ride comfort of the car. Now, taillights, LEDs, it does have this black trim, which makes it look very slick. The orange or amber, or I'm not sure what they call the paint yet, but we'll roll it in the Supers. Now let's pop the trunk. It's not a motorized tailgate, but it is electronically, poppable, I guess. Now, when we look up here, you see Subaru up there. It's a nice little touch. But what I really like is when you look down here, you see all these mountains and the little Crosstrek there, like they're really gearing it for adventure. Even when you look at some of the sills inside the door sills, you'll see these kinds of design motifs. The first thing I really want to note is that the actual space, the cargo floor, is quite high up off the ground. And the reason, like I showed you earlier, is because this one does have an all-wheel drive system and it does have a different rear suspension. It's not as space-saving as a torsion beam rear suspension, so keep that in mind. And also, once we lift this, well, you'll see that it does have a spare tire. There's a lot of space in there actually, but it's a lot of foam, a lot of little compartments and stuff you can use. There's this little cover here, and if you look here, Subaru, made in Japan right there. But yeah, you have your tools there for changing your tire, so now hopefully you don't have to put that to the use, but it's there if you ever need. You do have this retractable tonneau cover here that you can set like that if you want to keep cargo away from prying eyes. That's always useful. But when it comes to space in terms of length from here to the back seat, it's about 31 inches. Between the wheel wells is about 42.5. And from the floor up to right about here, it's about 25.5. We can fold down the rear seat like so. Fold it down. It's actually all practically fold flat already. And the length goes up to around 54 inches, which is pretty good for a vehicle of this size. But something I want to point out here though, why did they use these kinds of bolts in the vehicle? I mean, that's normally the kind you'd find at your local auto supply. Powering the Subaru XV. Yes, Crosstrek. I'm really gonna do that a lot. But anyways, powering the Subaru Crosstrek is a 2-liter naturally aspirated direct injection flat 4 engine. It makes 156 PS and 196 Newton meters of torque. It's bolted onto a CVT. It's driving all 4 wheels. It has paddle shifters or a manual mode depending on what you want to use. And it makes an 8-speed simulated, I guess, transmission when you do that. Now, a couple of the things notable here. You follow the intake line. The intake is over there, so that means the water weighting is not really going to be outstanding. Again, this is not meant to be a big SUV for you to be crossing a lot of rivers and streams. You can cross streams, but you know what I mean. Also, the design of the engine does make it very interesting in so many different ways. For one, you look at the oil filter, you notice it's kind of mounted, well, upside down, or is it right side up? Depending on how you want to look at it, but it's mounted right there, making removing it very, very easy. The problem, however, and the complication with these engines, this being a flat 4, is that the spark plug removal process is a bit more complicated. One of the biggest benefits, of course, of a flat 4 engine is when it comes to balance. And that's kind of a recurring theme all throughout. First, let's fire it up. Nico? So, when we fire it up, after the initial ignition, you'll notice that there's no perceptible or visible vibration with the engine. And the reason for that is because a horizontally opposed flat 4 engine or even a flat 6 runs very, very smooth because they have to engineer the balance right from the start. The pistons aren't reciprocating up and down. These pistons are reciprocating left to right. So when one piston goes left, it kind of really just cancels each other out. It makes for a really, really, really smooth engine, barely any vibration right there. That's something key here. Subaru is all about balance. That's what they're giving all of their vehicles by sticking actually with this formula of a horizontally opposed engine and of course a symmetrical all-wheel drive system. Yes, symmetrical all-wheel drive, meaning from left to right, you have kind of a perfect balance as much as you can achieve with a modern automobile. Now let's check out what's inside. By now, you would have seen Eric's video of the top spec Subaru XV. Sorry, Crosstrek. That's going to happen quite a few times in this video. But when you look at this version, of course, this is a lower grade variant, and there are some obvious changes. For one, the seating, the material they used, it's not the leather like the one Eric reviewed. This one is the fabric version, and it does have this pattern that I don't know, reminds me of a Mercedes-Benz rather than Subaru, which is kind of interesting. It doesn't have the center armrest here. It still has these headrests, which looks like ET's head, and each one of them has a tab. You know, it's like having your shirt tag on the outside of your shirt, which is kind of odd, but still they want to remind you to put it up lest you get whiplash. It's meant to be in the up position unless you fold down the seat. Now, when it comes to space, it's actually okay. The floor is low down, but the transmission tunnel is very, very pronounced because this is an all-wheel drive vehicle. You don't get any rear AC vents in this vehicle. You also do not get any charging ports in the back, which is unfortunate. So you're gonna have to order one of those longer charger cables if you want to be able to charge here. There is a 12-volt outlet fairly close by there, so all well and good. The view from out front, they tried to put the seat high up so you get a nice view out, but the headrest of this one is actually pretty high, and the ceiling is low because this is an XV. It's not a Forester where it's not XV, Crosstrek. It's not a Forester where they have the ceiling very high up. You also don't get the panoramic glass roof in, but still, it's a nice place to be in, and it's actually, yeah, pretty nice and comfortable. Now let's check out the front. The key thing to remember with the XV and the Crosstrek is that it's basically an Impreza, just done a little bit differently when it comes to the suspension, or particularly with the ride height, but the interior is practically the same for all intents and purposes. Maybe they make a few adjustments here and there, but the architecture is going to be pretty much the same. You step from one, you step into the other, it's going to be perfectly fine. Actually, when you step from the other models into any of the others, it's all going to feel very, very familiar because a lot of the things are going to be the same, with the screen, the digital display there in the middle with the instrument cluster. Subaru isn't going for the full digital screen yet. I think they really should at this point. They still have a lot of buttons on this big steering wheel with the really nice leather and the baseball style stitching. Transmission control here, very conventional. It's a PRND with the manual right there to the left. Of course, you also have the paddle shifters right there, electronic parking brake here. It's very conventional in many different ways, particularly if you're used to Subaru. Sorry about that, the car moved forward just a little bit. Now, when it comes to the actual design of the interior, it's again typical Subaru. Even though they did streamline a lot of things, it's still fairly busy. It's not exactly what I would call Zen minimalist in any kind of way, because you look at the dashboard, see how so many of these edges and creases meet up. It seems very busy when you look at it compared to a lot of vehicles we're seeing now. There is a fair degree of plastic around the vehicle. I mean, I think this one, no, this plastic, this is soft touch, plastic, plastic, plastic. It's actually plastic all around the vehicle. So I think they could have improved on that with some more other materials. I mean, they do have the carbon fiber right there and on the doors as well, but again, it's still largely plastic all around. That's something I wasn't expecting. I was expecting a bit better. However, for what it is, for the materials they chose, it does look good, and it does feel very, very well built, because you look at how all the edges, I mean, I told you, many creases and edges here of panels meeting up. Everything seems to be very perfectly aligned. That's what you want. Even one of the things that I normally notice in a lot of vehicles, like how the door cards meet up with the dashboard right there, the alignment is actually quite perfect. So good on Subaru, that's Japanese manufacturing quality for you. And yes, this is not made in Thailand or Korea or wherever. This is pure Japanese made from Subaru. Like I said, this is a lower grade version compared to the one that Eric was checking out. So while you do have the leather here and all that, but the materials are also fabric right there, same with the door inserts right here. But still, it feels very well built. Now, going through some of the features, you have your power windows here on the left, the normal stuff, lock, unlock, mirrors, the fold right there. You do have a big glass area here, which I do like, and it does give you visibility down there. It kind of eliminates the blind spot. They did move the mirror a bit further back, so it looks better by my eye. That's something I really appreciate. On the steering wheel, you have a lot of buttons, because there are a lot of functions on this vehicle that you can control right here. Track right there, volume right here. This is to cycle through the different displays on the screen and the information there, Bluetooth, all that source. Paddle shifters again. Here on the right, you have your drive controls. So you have the adaptive cruise control with Eyesight right here. Cruise control, speed up and down, resume, all that. Adjusting the distance to the vehicle and ahead, so less and more. Then you have the lane keep steering assist here. and then your SI drive mode right here. So you have intelligent mode, just keep it in intelligent mode most of the time. For more aggressive driving, you want to keep it in S mode or sport. It does not have the sport sharp like some of the other performance Subaru models, so that's to be expected. And of course the horn button, you can press it right here. It's nice and loud. Now on to the middle, let's start up here. Here you have your indicators for whoever is not wearing a seatbelt. So Barney is sitting in the rear seat in the middle, which is why it's illuminated. If he moved to the left, this would light up, this would light up as well. So keep that in mind. There you go, Barney moved to the right side, so it changed which side it's on. Thank you, Barney. You're always so very helpful. May you get a raise. Now you have the lights here. It's kind of weird that, you know, for the price you're paying for this car, you still have like halogen lights there, which is, you know, why not go LEDs? Adjustment there, all that stuff. There's no sunglass holder. Now, if you notice, there is this big panel here, and it extends up to here. What that is, it's the eyesight system like I showed you from the outside. There are 2 cameras here, and then one more right here, a larger wide-angle view camera right there. The big improvement, of course, with the actual housing of the eyesight is that they put it flush with the windshield. That means if you want to tint your vehicle, you don't have to, you know, like you won't worry about blocking it in any way anymore. It's kind of flush right there, unless you have a really poor installer of tint, which would kind of suck. So keep that in mind, and you control many of the eyesight features here. We'll get to that in a bit. Now, this, of course, is what's really been changing with the Subarus of late. It's their portrait touchscreen. It still does have physical buttons, like you have the defoggers all there, temperature control. It's dual zone, by the way. This one does have a rear view camera. Doesn't have a 360 camera, unfortunately, even though it already has a camera up there. So, but still, camera, the rear camera, it does have that. So when you put it into reverse, the rear camera will come out, and it does have guidelines. So when I turn, it will, you know, point you in the right direction, or at least point those in the right direction, in the same direction as the wheel. So keep that in mind. Now, okay, car's not gonna move. Climate control, all that settings there, sound, phone, all that. But the one here, this menu, is where you have a lot of the many functions of the vehicle. So like I said, you have the reverse, all that stuff, the one-touch lane change, which is basically this, right? It'll, you know, do that, help you out for you. But the auto vehicle hold, that's the AVH, auto start stop, and then the X mode. Now the X mode is basically Subaru's version of simulating the low range in a 4x4 SUV. So what it does, it kind of reduces the throttle input or the throttle response to be able to prevent the vehicle, you from digging the vehicle into the ground when you're driving on loose surfaces like sand, har, all that stuff. When we get into the other features of the vehicle, this is the one that's most useful. This is the Android Auto, but mine seems to be off right now. Let me see if I can turn it on. There you go. So here's our normal Android Auto view, or actually Waze view, and then my normal apps. I mean, it's pretty much the same for a lot of the other Subarus we've tried, but we like the way how Subaru does it now. It's kind of, almost portrait-ish. Your AC controls are here. You have a tray for your phone here. Right below it, you still have an auxiliary in port, which is kind of odd. I mean, nobody uses the 3.5mm jacks anymore. Maybe some do, but no, I don't anymore. You can fast charge your phone. I'm using the 2.4 data port for my phone right now. Transmission, 2 cup holders, 12-volt outlet, little pocket for your coins. I put my glasses here, so it doesn't have a sunglass holder up there, so I'll put mine there. So I think that about covers it. So let's go out and take it for a drive. The weather this morning is something I would characterize as a fine Subaru weather, because it's totally unpredictable. Like earlier, for the last maybe 2-3 hours or so, it's been really raining hard. And then now the sun comes out, and then over there where we're heading, it's also looking like it's going to be raining some more. This kind of unpredictability is what Subaru is made for, because it kind of makes the unpredictable, predictable. I've had like many experiences before with a Subaru. I think it was a WRX 2014, where I was cruising down the highway at around 100. Well, maybe a little bit more than 100. And then suddenly the downpour came in, and it just felt so confident. You don't feel like you're at danger or in danger or at any kind of extra risk, because it just feels so sure-footed when you're in a Subaru. This one is no different. Of course, we can't expect WRX levels of power, because acceleration of this is only like 10.5 seconds, 0 to 100. That's not very fast, and that is to be expected, because this is not a WRX, or it's not an XT. I mean, they don't have a Subaru Crosstrek XT. If you notice, I do have a camera right beside me. Normally I don't put a camera here, but what I wanted to do was show you the eyesight system at work. Normally I do have a camera there, but if it was there, it can't see into the screen. So yeah, I wanted to show you that. So anyways, hopefully you can see what's going on the screen, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my faith in the system and engage the cruise control, the adaptive cruise control in this one. Normally, I don't like putting my faith in these systems, because I'm of the belief that a driver's intuition is still like number one when it comes to driving around, reading the roadcraft, that kind of thing. And systems like this, it can't really replace that, but they can get pretty close. So, for example, I'll set it now. That's at 30 kilometers per hour. It's just cruising along. And I also have the lane keep system that this one has. It's actively maintaining me in the lane. It's very, very reassuring. That's the important thing about what Subaru does, because the way they did their system, it's very well thought out what they did. It's really useful on the highway, especially like TP-Lex, like it can feel really, really long, but in the city, it works perfectly well, and it's one of the few ones that I would trust in the city. What you buy a Subaru for is handling, and this road right now, like underneath the Marcos Highway in Marikina, is one of the ones that really caught me out like so many years before. I was in a WRX. It was the hatchback WRX, and right there, what I didn't realize was a gravel truck like spilled a lot of gravel on the road, and it got me into a little bit of a slide. I'm not gonna lie, that was a scary moment. My balls were right up to here already, because I was sliding around there, and I wasn't going fast. I was going 60, but there was so much dirt on there, that so many pebbles that kind of got me sliding around like that. It was really dangerous, but also kind of fun. But that's the magic of the all-wheel drive system at work. And then you just power out just a little bit, not too much, and it will just carry on through, and you just have to match it with a little bit of steering work, and you will be fine. There is one big disadvantage with the Crosstrek, and that is when it comes to fuel economy. Now, in my time with it on the highway, I was actually getting pretty good. I mean, it was around 15.2 kilometers per liter, my typical highway driving, expressway driving. You may even be able to get more if you're, really good at modulating the throttle. In the city, though, is where it kind of falls away, because in my time with it, I was getting around 8.2, average speed around 25. So fairly light traffic, but when the traffic really goes up, right now, rush hour, Monday morning traffic, well, the fuel economy really drops. I'm getting around 5.8 to around 6.1, depending on how bad the traffic is. Usually average speed of around maybe 15 to 16 kilometers per hour. So that's something to keep in mind with a vehicle like this. You're going to be paying a bit more for fuel. And it boils down to three things, three very important factors about the Crosstrek. I was about to say XV. It's going to be maybe count down in the comments below how many times I say XV instead of Crosstrek. But with the Crosstrek, there are three things really affecting it. The first is the engine, the second is the all-wheel drive, and third is, well, really the formula that they're sticking with. So the engine, 2-liter, to keep it idling, it takes more fuel compared to, let's say, a 1.5. That's just a given. You need more fuel to create a certain air-fuel mixture for a bigger displacement engine like this. So compared to a 1.5, is going to be nowhere near when you're stuck in traffic like this. 1.5, 1.3, whatever, all those. will be much more fuel efficient than this. Of course, you don't get the power that you would normally get in a 2-liter in a 1.5 unless you put a turbo. Second, the all-wheel drive system. Now, it does have a CVT which adjusts very well to the kind of situation that you're in. You are dealing with that kind of weight, that extra drag, that extra load on the engine, hence the fuel economy also goes down. And the third is Subaru is kind of invested in this system. I don't see them changing too much. They are doing more EVs and more hybrids, but we're not seeing that in the Philippines yet. There's no hybrid system in this one. There's also no EV yet in the Philippines. The Solterra is not here. Hopefully it's coming soon. They're not doing any small displacement 1.5 liters. They're not doing any front-wheel drive ones. They do have one in Japan for the Crosstrek, but they don't have it here. So that's really something we just have to kind of accept about the Crosstrek. But what it also delivers to you is a ride that certainly feels very premium. I'm struggling to think of a vehicle in this specific class, meaning the compact SUV, not like the BMWs, not the, we're talking about the volume kind of brands. Now, Subaru is branded kind of like a semi-premium brand, but still, when you drive it around on EDSA, I'm struggling to think of something that feels as good as this. There are some that are very soft, like for example, there's a Ford Territory just passed me by. That vehicle feels very soft when you drive it around here, to the point where it almost feels like you're kind of flapping about, the floaty kind of thing. It's not very reassuring when you're going on a drive, like on a long drive. But this one, no, it gives you a great balance with kind of favoring the comfort side of it. That's what you really get in an XV Crosstrek. So when you're cruising around on EDSA like now, it just feels like it's absorbing as much of it for you. Yes, the car is going to be moving around, but nowhere near a lot of the other vehicles around you. So that's something to really enjoy in the Crosstrek. That's what you pay for, this kind of comfort. You also get the safety, you get the style. Well, if you like the style, then it's really going to be all up to you. But where does it fit in the grand scheme of things in the compact SUV class? Well, we're heading over to the warehouse so we can talk about that just a little bit more. See what I mean about the bumps? It's really good. So there are a lot of things to like about the Subaru Crosstrek, as well as some things to expect when you drive one of these around. And that, I think, is going to be the real key factor when it comes to Subaru and, of course, the Crosstrek, all of their vehicles moving forward. You see, they're kind of in a corner when it comes to their DNA. They can't break out of the flat engine, the CVT, or the turbo engines, all that stuff that makes Subaru very, very unique. Also limits them in some ways. They can't try certain engines like small turbocharged engines. I know they'll be doing a lot more electrification in the future, but it's kind of hard to see how they're going to take the 2-liter engine moving forward, because the way things are when it comes to fuel economy, that's going to be very, very key. Still, what's interesting about Subaru is that it's still fun to drive, but it does cost quite a bit for this version, because it retails for $1.998 million, this being the entry-grade version of the Subaru Crosstrek. Now, while it may seem good compared to some vehicles we've reviewed, like for example, the Chevrolet Trax RS, this is certainly a very good option with a lot more features and much better driving dynamics than that one. But when you look at the other variant of the Crosstrek, that one is only 20,000 pesos more at 2,018,000. And it comes with a sunroof, and it comes with leather, comes with a few more features inside, including the adaptive LED headlights that follow the road as you turn. It's almost as if Subaru doesn't want us to buy this one, they want us to buy the higher spec version. But hey guys, let me know in the comments below what you think about the Crosstrek, about this variant, and whether they should have renamed it from XV to this one. This is Vince of AutoIndustriya.com. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.